So I have different styles of making videos. Most of the time, I like making my videos outside in nature. Like if I have a phone stand, I prop it up on like a table in a park somewhere, and just have a nice background, trees in the sky. Sometimes I feel like being in the camera. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll do a spontaneous video like me sitting here right at my window right now. I need a phone stand so bad. So excuse the little shaking of the camera a little bit. All right, so shadow work. First of all, we have to get an understanding, right? There's two words: there's shadow, then there's work, right? So we're working on the shadow. What exactly is our shadow? Our shadow is also synonymous with the inner child, as they call it, the wounded child, the unconscious mind. What is the unconscious mind? The unconscious mind is that part of ourselves, that dark, scary place. And they use an analogy of an ocean, the surface, our conscious mind, or maybe even up to a half a mile, right? Conscious mind. But then as you go down, 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 and go thousands and thousands of 10,000 feet down, it gets dark. And that dark, scary place is like our unconscious mind, okay? Dreams, things that we hide, don't want to face, right? So I'm sure if you took a psychology class, you know about the unconscious and our conscious mind. The conscious mind is the front portion of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, where we make decisions, willpower, intention, who we try to present ourselves to the world in a way conscious, right? Unconscious, the realm of the dreams, the dark hidden place, the scary. And so the shadow, right? When we think about a shadow, it's not by mistake that they use these kind of terms and symbolism. Shadow, how is a shadow created? When light is being blocked. A shadow is created right on the floor, right in front of you, or something you holding, right? You're outside. You see a shadow because your body is blocking a certain amount of light. So in actuality, a shadow, this is little, I don't want to get too deep on you, it really doesn't exist independent of a light source. Okay? And this would be also kind of like two sides of a coin, heads and tails. No tails without heads, no heads without tails. No up without down, no down without up, or left without right, or right without left. So in other words, let's get back into, this is a little freestyle, so I just did this spontaneously, so it might seem a little freestylish, but stay with me. I'm gonna keep it basic. So the shadow is basically the parts of ourselves that you can say is cut off from the light. The light would be parts of ourselves where we aspire to do good, be successful, be happy, this and that. And then the shadow, most of the time, is that conflicting part of ourselves that happens from certain traumas, wounds, You know, shadows usually start somewhere around junior high school. You know, just some, you know, if you guys, unfortunately, a lot of shadows start for kids in school. You know, if you was constantly bullied about something, shadows is created by people who victims of molestation and rape. Um, Shadows is created by just seeing something constantly, like your mother being beat by your father and stuff like that. So what happens, you know, and there's so many other examples of how we create shadows. It it's a what happens is an aspect of our selves locks things down in a hidden dungeon because it's so painful, so scary that it's almost like a mechanism in nature where, like, your brain and your nervous system say this is too much. This stuff, it feels like you're dying when it's like when you think about it. If it was to come up, it would just probably break down your nervous system because it became too much of the reoccurring trauma and stuff. So we lock these parts of ourselves deep down in a dungeon, right, where there's no light. Okay. Now, just because we lock something up doesn't mean that it's gone or dead. Definitely not. The reason why they use the ocean as a synonymous way of, and not just the ocean. The If you don't know, the ocean goes so deep; it goes almost like 20,000 miles down, where humans can't even go, or submarines. So if a bubble was created at the bottom of the ocean, it might take it might take 10 hours to rise all the way up to the top, or maybe a day, however long it takes, but it has to rise to the top and pop. So with our unconscious mind and those shadow aspects of ourselves, stuff still rises to the top. It still rises. It rises when we're reminded of the thing that traumatized us. It can be, it sometimes it's like you don't even know how the shadow aroused. You can just be driving in your car and look at a billboard, and the way the words say something, then it reminds you of something real quick, and then you like, I was just in a good mood. Why the hell I'm in a mad crabby mood all of a sudden? Sometimes most of the time when certain parts of the shadow kind of erupts, it could be harmless like that, where it changes your mood for half a day or something, or it could be nasty in a way where once it's triggered, then sometimes for 7 or 10 days or so, you know you're drinking, doing drugs, trying to hide yourself behind too much sexual activities or negative things like gossip, coping mechanisms. So you know, when some people shadow erupts, right, because it reminds them of, you know, those horrible things that happen, the way that people react to the shadow is different. Some people may handle it by just staying in their house. I don't want to talk to nobody, just crying themselves to sleep or something, or drinking, being silent, right? But then you have some people, the other half of people in the world, that when they shadow erupts, it comes out nasty, where to the point that they want to start with people, get in a fight, get real bitter and nasty, really negative, and vengeful, and you know, and all that type of stuff. To bring so let me try to make it more organized. I hope I'm not freestyling too much, but I'm sure that you're staying with me because I'm not going into anything like very advanced. Okay, just giving you, once again, I'm doing this so that you can understand, because there's a lot of hype out there, shadow work, shadow this and that, and you want to know what you're working on. Yeah, I know the shadow is this dark side of ourselves. Now, another thing to mention is this: is the shadow side of ourselves. If you don't have the right information, now, if you don't have the right information, then you can mistakenly think shadow, dark, it's an evil side of ourselves. No, no. The shadow is actually more uh, compared to as a wounded, scared child. So, like a child throws a tantrum because it's not being given enough attention, aka the light of your conscious mind, to retrain it and say, I love all parts of myself, right? Even you, shadow, come to the forefront of my mind. I love you. I know you've been cut off. I know you've been, right. And that's the beginning of the work of shadow work, that wounded. So remember, a child can be screaming and raging when people rage with temper and want to fight people. That's like a scared child that's really coming from. So it seems like it's a boogeyman. This parts of ourselves that we fear, and that's why we locked it down in this dungeon. Okay, but when you lock the shadow, aka wounded child, down in a dungeon, it's like if you have a child that's having problems in school and stuff like that, and he trying to, or she trying to come home and tell you, because people picking on me, I got things I can't explain, daddy, mommy, this and that, and you just go in your room, boom, shut the door. Each time the kid gonna get madder and madder and find a way to get to the surface and still exist, even if it's for a day or a few days. Some people shadows erupt a few times a month. Some people shadows if you have something in you where you feel like you go through a little depressed spell or something like that, like 5 days out of a month, like some reoccurring parts of the shadow, that's okay. But some people live with their shadows every other day. That's when you got a serious problem. At least if you're functional to a level where your shadow is not raging and making a difficult, extremely difficult life for you every single day. So almost I sidetracked a little, but so the shadow, let me backtrack. The shadow is not to be looked at as dark or evil or this and that. You have to access it and say, and emit from your ignorance, right? And it's unfair to say ignorant in a way like it's your fault that your mother was being beat up in front of your father, you was molested or raped or tortured by evil kids every day in school and stuff like that. But when I say ignorant, like, shadows is only created out of ignorance. Ignorance doesn't mean, oh, you stupid, you ignorant, as in dissing somebody. Ignorance is just like you are unaware and you unconsciously created that shadow. You unconsciously not having the right knowledge to know that you can just, like, not having the tools to like process and heal and cleanse that stuff out of you, hence the shadow being created. I'm going to go into a part 2 now and go more into certain forms of work and meditations with the shadow.